No dessert for pastry chefs is made up of two parts: thin sheets of dough that are wrapped around a delicious filling. I started off by showing you the basics, a French version of strudel in a caramel apple jalousie. Then we advanced a level with Cabernet Coach cherry walnut strudels made using phyllo pastry. It's time to move into the grand dessert, the classic cherry strudel. This is the Austrian original, made with our own homemade strudel dough. But let's start with that cherry filling. I've got 4 cups of tart cherries here, to which I'll add 2 cups of sugar. I want to simmer this for 10 minutes and infuse some flavor by adding 2 cinnamon sticks. While that simmers, we'll make the strudel dough. So I start with 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. In addition to the all-purpose flour, I need to add bread flour, 1 cup of it. And it's that gluten that's going to give us the stretch that allows us to stretch the strudel dough as thin and as wide and long as we possibly can. To this, I'll add 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1 cup of warm water, 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I like vegetable oil in the dough because it stays nice and pliable. And the very last ingredient is 1/2 teaspoon of cider vinegar. The intense acidity helps promote the stretch, the gluten within the dough when kneading it and when stretching it out. So now I'll work this on a low speed to incorporate the ingredients and then increase the speed just by 1 speed to start kneading it. I keep my hands floured. You can see how soft it is. So just with a back and forth motion, push the dough forward, turn it 90 degrees, pull it back, and then keep repeating that motion. So you're maximizing the stretch within the flour. So you have to let this dough relax for a full hour. But you want to keep it at room temperature. It stretches easily when it's still a little warm. I'll just set this aside to rest, and then I can thicken up the cherry filling in the meantime. Now that the filling has had time to simmer, I can pull out the cinnamon sticks, and I simply use cornstarch to thicken up the cherry filling. I use 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. You can't add cornstarch dry to a hot mixture. It'll just clump up. You have to create what's called a slurry, and that's a mixture of the cornstarch with some cool water, not warm water. I just mix that with a little fork, just a couple tablespoons. And now I can pour this liquid into the cherry tart. It's great to watch this transformation. When you pour in the cornstarch, it makes the whole mixture cloudy. But once it hits 212, that's when cornstarch activates and it turns all beautifully clear and shiny. And then you take it off the heat, and you want to cool it down at the very least to room temperature, but you can make this filling a day ahead and work with it cold from the fridge. So now I have a chilled cherry filling, and I have a batch of the strudel dough that's now fully relaxed. So now for the fun part, stretching out the strudel pastry. The tool of choice for stretching out strudel dough is a tablecloth. By spreading it out on your work surface, you have a nice, even, flexible space. With a dusting of flour, your strudel dough won't stick, and it makes rolling up the filled strudel so easy. And my friend Mia, a fellow pastry chef, showed me this trick. When you're starting to stretch your strudel dough, throw it around a little bit, and it starts the stretching. And now, a little patience, let's start working from the middle to the outer edges. I like to use the back of my hands, and you just keep working and stretching. Be gentle. If you don't feel it moving, just let it relax again. Remember, with every stretch, you're reworking those glutens again. So just take your time. And when I hit a certain point of stretchiness, I'll actually use the corner of the table and hook it onto the edge of the table. There we go. I think we're in good shape here. I've got 1/3 cup of melted butter. Now I like to just do this freeform, get my hands in there. Pour the butter over the surface of the pastry, and you can use a brush or just massage it in with your hands. But the added element is the sprinkling of breadcrumbs. Phyllo pastry is drier than this soft, tender strudel dough, so you need the breadcrumbs to keep the rolled layers of the pastry separate. And now for the cooled cherry filling, I spread that along one end of the strudel pastry. And now for the fun part. The first roll, I fold over, beautiful, delicate strudel dough over the cherry filling, because you don't want to compact the strudel too much. Just the loose lifting of the tablecloth rolls it beautifully. And actually use the cloth to lift the strudel over. And then, consistent with the other strudels I made, an egg wash brush on the surface promotes browning and shine. And now to the oven for 40 to 45 minutes at 375. Oh, beautiful. You can just tell by looking at it how flaky it's going to be. Now you have to let your strudel cool for about 20 to 30 minutes before you slice it, mostly because the filling is so hot. I have a strudel that's had that time to chill. I like to plate it, but before that, a strudel is not complete without a generous dusting of icing sugar on top. I like to use a bread knife to cut through the flaky layers on an angle if you can. And there it is. You can see all those distinct flaky layers. So now that you've seen strudel from all different levels, from basic to sophisticated, now it's time to think about the little added extras, like my caramel spring garnishes. A pastry chef is always looking for new and interesting ways to garnish their plates, to make them stand out from everybody else's. My caramel sugar springs are a great accent to a dessert plate with a portion of strudel. And it starts by making simple caramelized sugar. So I pour in a couple tablespoons of water into a small sauce pot. And I like to put the water at the bottom, so when I add my 1 cup of sugar, it starts melting right away. I'll turn the heat on high. And you always boil your caramelized sugar uncovered on high heat. The last addition I'm making is a tablespoon of glucose. It gives the caramelized sugar some stretch and movement. You can find glucose wherever you buy cake decorating supplies. As the sugar cooks, I brush the sides of the pot with water to keep it clean and until it turns a light amber color. There we go. I've got a beautiful amber color to the caramelized sugar. It's far too hot and fluid to work with now. So what I'll do is let it cool down for just a few minutes. And get my portion of that pear walnut strudel ready for the plate. Okay, let's take a peek. Oh yes, this is just the right consistency. What I have ready is a tray lined with parchment paper, and then I simply use wooden spoons to create or shape the springs. I have a little dish with vegetable oil, and I just grease the handle of the spoon. That way the spring will come off easily. Then just let the sugar do all the work. So that's the glucose at work. See that beautiful stretch? I'll let this set and work on another one. And if you can, you want to loosen it while it's still a little flexible. There we go. Start with a small one. Usually takes 1 or 2 caramel springs before you get the real rhythm down. There we go. Try one last one. Let me just get a gorgeous one here. Got some nice little springs And just to make the garnish stand out on the plate, and I love a slice of warm strudel, a generous piping of whipped cream on the side, and just place them on top, and all of a sudden you have a beautifully garnished dessert. So now that you've mastered the techniques behind making a really good strudel, from the simple type to the elaborate, you can take all these ideas to your own kitchen to bake and enjoy.